You know, it's strange people don't use letters to build more often. They can be quite useful, except for T, which struggles with the concept of standing still even on its own, because the top bar carries all the weight and it's just sitting way too high. It makes the whole thing feel like it's leaning before you've even touched it. You place one T upright and already have doubts. Add a second one on top of that, and yeah, the first one already decides it's had enough. So with no base or grip, there's never going to be anything to lock it in place. It's always going to tip over. Just give up, bro. Number 9. Y. Y somehow manages to almost be worse. Just like the last one, it falls over on its own. Put another one on top of it, and all you've got is 2 letters falling over together. Like, I don't know why you even tried that, to be honest. Sometimes I forget how silly you are. But whatever, what you should have done is try that trick where you flip one and then lean them onto each other. See, look, they're balancing. For now. Oh wait, no, they're shifting, and okay, the whole arrangement has just given up. But even if you did manage to get them stable, it's not like you can build any higher anyway, because the shape doesn't give you anywhere sensible to place the next one. It's basically a dead end after one layer. Number 8. O. O, as you might have guessed, is a pain to work with in the architectural world of letters. Let's take a single O for demonstration, and okay, yeah, it's already rolling away. Hang on a minute, guys. Okay, now that we've got our base O nice and secured, let's try to put another one on top. Wow, who could have seen that one coming? You can line them up side by side and start building a little pyramid shape, but there's a hidden caveat which you probably didn't consider. See, it's also the kind of structure that makes people want to throw things at it and see what happens. I mean, look at it, it's like one of those carnival games where you have to throw the lead balls to knock over some coconuts. It's just inviting destruction. Number 7. V. V has similar issues with balance, just in different forms. The centre of gravity is very high, and the base is narrow, so who knows why you'd choose this letter to build with. It's always going to be slightly unstable. Now, I don't know how quick you are, but if you're particularly rapid, you could probably stack a few of these things, maybe build a small pyramid before it notices what you're doing. But like a long-distance relationship, it's not going to last. Sorry, bro. The moment you slow things down or the weight shifts, the whole thing starts sliding out from the bottom, and then everything just collapses in on itself. It's kind of like a tower that looks promising right up until it isn't. Number 6. I. Yeah, pretty promising, I know. It's straight and simple, so it's kind of like Vin Diesel. But yeah, seeing as though it stands up nicely, you can go ahead and start stacking them up, buddy. And for a moment, you feel like you've figured it out. You are the king of letter stacking. Congratulations. No one is proud of you. But then you start to notice how narrow it is. There's also no width to support anything above it. So as you add more pieces and as the tower gets taller, it also becomes more delicate. One small push, one bit of wind, or even just an uneven weight, and it all comes down in a line. It's clean, but it's very fragile. Exactly like my ego. Number 5. Z. Z is a very strong early contender, as in it works explicitly well for the first few layers. Like, look at the way it stacks up. That is giving you a very cool structural design. It's kind of futuristic, and so far it's looking pretty sturdy. However, the problems show up when the weight builds. That diagonal section in the middle starts taking all the pressure, and it's not really designed for that. And as you add more Zs, you can clearly see the strain, and eventually it just gives up, and whole tower tips over sideways like a tree that's just been cut. I'm over here just yelling timber as this one goes down. Also, side note, E has similar issues because it's only got support on one side, but ultimately the weight becomes too much. So both of these letters look fine at first, but both fail once the load increases. Number 4. N. Now this is interesting because N is basically Z turned the right way. Like once it's in this orientation, it suddenly makes a lot more sense. The structural support runs in a direction that actually helps with the weight instead of fighting it. You can stack these higher without the same weak point giving out. The downside though is how they interact with each other, which is not at all actually. They don't interlock. Each one is its own separate tower, sort of standing next to each other rather than working together. So you end up with multiple tall, narrow stacks instead of one strong structure. So it's probably still going to be pretty wobbly in an earthquake. I mean, you wouldn't want to be on the top floor. It's better than the Z, don't get me wrong, but it still has limits. Number 3. H. Oh yeah, okay, now we're getting into the real solid ones. 2 strong legs and a connecting bar in the middle. Oh yeah, someone cooked here. You can stack several of these and they hold up well. In fact, after a while, it even starts to look like scaffolding after a few layers, which feels appropriate because that's basically what it is. Could even use this when working on building other letter towers, which is actually why it's quite high in this list. I mean, think about it. No one ever wants to play the support character in anything ever. Everyone's too focused on being the star. So I think we're doing the honorable thing here and paying our respects by giving it the credit it deserves. Thank you, H. You're the real GOAT. Number 2. W. W is excellent for stacking, although in a slightly different way than past entries, because look at it, the shape fits into itself very well. In fact, it's in a way that makes each layer sit so nicely on the one below it. They line up like baskets in a supermarket, slotting together with very little effort. You can actually build quite high before stability becomes an issue. The only downside is the space. There isn't much room inside the actual structure itself, so you're sort of building a solid block rather than something you can interact with, which is the only reason it's not at the top spot, because other than being painfully boring, it's strong and certainly fits the criteria of top letters that you would use to stack up. Number 1. A. Yeah, always was going to be a winner, but not when you tried to stack them like that. I mean, how did you ever think that was going to work? How about instead, and hear me out, you offset them side by side in that classic card tower style? Oh yeah, everything changes. The angled sides support each other and the crossbar in the middle of each A stops them just sliding and collapsing flat. Like, because have you actually ever tried to build a card tower? If only the actual cards came with that little support in the middle. It'd be so much easier. But anyway, each new layer of this one adds strength instead of strain. The wider the base, the more stable the whole thing becomes. You can keep building and it keeps holding. It's one of the few shapes here that actually benefits from getting bigger. If you wanted to build something truly tall, this is the one that you start with. A zombie invasion just broke out, and you thought it'd be a good idea to hide in the letter C for whatever strange reason. After climbing inside, you realize you're facing the only opening, because, as you can see, there's no back exit. Not even a little hatch anywhere you can escape out if things get heated. There's nothing clever hidden in this design, just you and the entrance and whatever is coming inevitably through it. If you're lucky and they arrive from the left, then alright, you're chill for now. But chances are if the whole world is infected, there'll likely be zombies on all sides. So if the zombies approach from the front, you have to deal with all of them, one by one, while standing in the only gap. You'd need a bucket full of ammo, as well as very good aim, and whilst you're at it, go ahead and activate the sleight of hand perk, because buddy, you're gonna need it. So if it is a swarm heading your way, this basically turns into a trap with a nice curve on it. Number 9. L. L feels like backing yourself into a corner and hoping for the best. You've got a wall behind you and a wall below you, which at least stops anything from getting to you from those directions. You know, because zombies come up from the ground sometimes, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, the problem is everything else. Just like the sea, the front is wide open, leaving you completely exposed from the right flank. There is one tiny advantage here though, which is that because there isn't really a roof, you could attempt an escape by climbing up and over the back if things were getting bad. You'd have to be pretty athletic and have good upper body strength, of course, but seeing those zombies coming up at you probably would grant you those abilities, despite the fact you've never done a pull-up in your life before. Number 8. V. Yeah, looks pretty good, right? Probably the kind of thing you'd go for if you're an idiot. Alright, okay, let's start with the positives though. Look at those high walls paired with slightly overhanging edges. That's going to make it particularly hard for any zombies to climb up at that angle. And when you climb inside, it feels like a promising structure to wait out the madness. But what happens when something, in this scenario a zombie, runs into it at full speed? Since there's no proper base support, the whole structure relies entirely on balance. Even just one clumsy zombie with a poor sense of direction is enough to knock it over, and once it tips, you're exposed instantly. You fall out and the walls are no longer between you and the problem, and now you're running. So yeah, this one's strong in one very specific scenario and completely useless in the next. Number 7. A. A gives you height, which sounds like a good idea in a zombie situation. You can climb to the top and stay above ground level, although if I were you, I wouldn't have chose that angle for the walls. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but I think there's a reason that things like castles and other defensive structures choose straight up vertical walls. But because these ones are basically at a 45-degree angle, anything that can climb even a little bit can make its way up. Not only that, you also don't have much space at the top. It's essentially just one single point, turning it into the world's most lethal balancing act. One wrong step sends you straight down to become zombie food, but there is one redeeming feature about the letter A where you hide underneath and hope you're not detected. You might be pretty safe here, but only if you showered recently. I'm not being rude, but if you haven't, then you're probably going to be a bit pungent, and the zombies will smell that and lift the A right off the top of you. Number 6. E. E works well from one direction and very badly from the other. If the zombies approach from the covered side, you're safe for a while. You've got a solid barrier and a bit of depth to work with. You could even climb up to the top section and enjoy a view of the post-apocalyptic city ravaged by chaos. Unfortunately, as you gaze into the distance in front of you, you can see a swarm of unrelenting zombos charging right in your direction. And when they arrive, there's nothing between you and their hungry mouths. So yeah, you might want to drink this view in for a little while because it's probably the last one you're gonna get. Number 5. O. O is completely enclosed, which feels reassuring since it's the first letter so far to try this approach. You climb inside and seal yourself in. Side note, don't look too deep into the logic of how we can open and close letters depending on the video. We have no consistency here. Anyway, for a moment you think you've solved the problem. Zombie can't grab onto smooth surfaces, and so they're not climbing on or in it. But what if these are some mentally smart zombies? You know, some real Albert Einstein type ones. They'd figure out that they can push you about, and suddenly you're not in control anymore. And whilst you might think that becoming dizzy is now the worst of your problems, you'd be severely underestimating the creativity of these zombies. They would roll you to the nearest cliff and push you right off the edge to crack you open like an egg. Yummy. Number 4. B. Welcome to NTV Cribs Zombie Base Edition. So this is B, this is my setup. Let me talk you through the place. So we got 2 levels, straight up separation capabilities, you know what I'm saying? Check it. The lower section is your main shelter, chilling area, might even set up a couple of speakers in here, host a few get-togethers, you know? Oh, but no zombos allowed though, you get me. Up on top, we have a different space, which I like to call the absolute attic. Top tier for holding supplies, tools, and most vital in an end-of-world scenario, all the beers. Basically, it's all the stuff you want to keep organized and out the main chilling area. Don't want to bring the vibes down, you know? But I've got to admit, even though it is 2 segments, it still can get a bit cramped, especially if you're like me and you move quickly, but brother, it does the job. Number 3. H. H is sturdy and reliable at the start. The 2 vertical sides give you strong support, and the middle bar adds extra structure. You can resist pressure from the sides without everything shifting around. The issue does show up, however, over time. As the zombies climb on top, due to the container-like shape of the H, they start to pile up. And as the weight increases, the structure begins to strain. If enough of them get up there, it's going to be like when water or snow gathers on a roof. And eventually, that whole section gives way. It doesn't happen immediately, but it is inevitable if you stay long enough. It's actually the first and only entry in this list that will have the zombies kill you by crushing you rather than eating you. H buys you time, but not forever. Number 2. I. I is basically a tower. If you were to lie on top of it, suddenly you've got a clear view of everything around you, and that height advantage is huge. It beats running around at street level having to fight off zombs with a bat. With this, you can actually see the movement from far away, meaning you can plan your next move. And if you have any kind of ranged weapon, say a tasty little Barrett 50 cal, you can deal with the threats before they even get close. The downside is access. Getting up there takes so much effort, and getting down quickly is even harder. If something manages to reach you or climb part of the structure, your escape route isn't great. It's a strong defensive position, but not the easiest to abandon. Number 1. W. W is the most complete setup on this list. You get 2 recessed sections that act as natural hiding spots. That means you can hide yourself in one and store supplies in the other, or you could bring a second person along and both stay covered. It's always good to have a bit of company at the end of the world. But there's more. The raised points in between give you elevation for defense. So you could mount some automatic weapons to use as turrets, and you'd actually be able to do that on both sides, so you'd be covered from all angles. It's stable, it's practical, and it just gives you options, and in a zombie invasion, that's exactly what you want. Unfortunately, the time has come for you to choose the perfect coffin, but you can only use letters, and we're starting off with V, which is not so much a coffin so much as a funnel points directly at the problem. I mean, think about it. You're going to lower it into the ground and start piling dirt on top. All of that dirt is just going to go straight inside, because nothing is stopping it. Everything settles down into that narrow point at the bottom, which means over time, you're left with one very compact bundle of everything. Bones, soil, whatever else ends up in there, all squashed together like it's a part of a video on one of those hydraulic press channels. If anyone digs up this in a few hundred years, they're going to have some interesting questions. They're going to be holding this fused mass of organic matter, wondering what exactly they're looking at and how it got that way. Number 9. X. X at least gives you some organization. If you're a psychopath, you can divide the body into 4 sections, like it was some sort of weird final storage system. The lower section is the safest, so that's where you'd want to keep anything important, things like skulls, major bones, that sort of thing. The upper sections are more exposed, so that's where less essential parts can go. It's grim, but it is technically a structure. The problem is that you're still relying on a shape that doesn't really seal well. Over time, things shift. Your careful layout slowly becomes, well, less careful. And oh yeah, since it's just bare dirt, don't forget about all the random worms and stuff. And by the way, they are hungry for some human nutrients. Number 8. I. I is designed for couples who really mean it when they say together forever. So, a bit of a weird start. Both people are strapped vertically to the central column. Then the whole thing is lowered into the ground like some kind of solemn lift. Now, that would make an interesting funeral, wouldn't it, if you saw that contraption? But anyway, it technically works as a coffin in the sense that you're underground and contained. Obviously, then the issue is said containment, because it actually doesn't exist. Soil can still get in, and so can anything else that lives in the soil. You're basically relying on depth alone to keep things undisturbed. It also looks quite strange from a practical standpoint because everything is upright rather than laid out. Like I said, I can't imagine that being a very traditional funeral. Number 7. G. G is built around a very specific fear that I'm sure every human has, being buried alive. So this design includes a built-in solution. The main body goes inside the lower section and the whole thing is buried underground just enough so that the tail of the G still sticks out. Attached to that tail is a bell. You can probably see where this is going. So yeah, if the worst happens and someone wakes up, they can move, shake the structure and make some noise to alert anyone nearby. It's a comforting idea to think you might have at least one last chance. But it does also depend entirely on someone being close enough to hear it, and even worse, willing to investigate. And also, now that I think about it, a coffin is pretty dark. You're not even going to know if it's night or daytime. It could be a completely empty graveyard. But anyway, the rest of the structure is reasonably protective, but the open tail means that, again, it's not completely sealed, and the whole thing kind of rests in the shallow dirt. So imagine if a bad rainstorm comes along and accidentally washes the dirt away. Ooh, yikes. Number 6. H. H is another 2-person setup, but instead this is for the people who are not on the best of terms. The lower section is enclosed and relatively protected. That's where the person you actually care about goes. The upper section, however, is open to the soil above. I don't know, you could whack someone like your toxic ex in there if for some unknown reason you got buried together. Anyway, the dirt would naturally flood in once you start, so the design very clearly shows who got the better deal. Structurally, it holds up decently because the sides are supported, but again, the top section offers no real defense against the pure dirty dirt. Number 5. U. U is the middle ground, literally and figuratively, and also on this list. This one is for those who choose something called cremation. You might have heard of it. But if you don't know, it's essentially where you shove someone you loved into a massive furnace and then burn them, and then proceed to brush the remainder, also known as ashes, inside of this U-shaped container. Now that I say it out loud, we as a human race, we are weird, aren't we? But yeah, the curve of the letter holds everything neatly, and because it's not a full burial container, you're not dealing with the soil pressure or underground conditions. So whack it on your shelf, under your bed, or anywhere you want in the house, really. It's a very different approach, but in terms of keeping remains safe over time, it's one of the more reliable options. Also, bonus points because these things are usually called urns, and well, what is the first letter of that very word? Yeah, exactly. Big brain moves. Number 4. N. N is excellent if you're worried about grave robbers, and yes, those do exist. That's not just something from horror films. The person rests in the lower section, fully buried and hidden, and the upper section, you might have figured, is what gets uncovered first if someone starts digging. And of course, it's empty, so anyone expecting to find valuables there ends up with nothing for their effort. I guess you could leave like a little troll item in there, maybe like a fake alien skull or something, I don't know, mess with someone's head a bit, but after a while they're likely to give up and leave, assuming that the entire structure is just pointless. Meanwhile, the actual resting place remains undisturbed below. It's a simple misdirection trick, aimed specifically at those lazy kind of grave robbers. And finally, structurally, it also holds up better than some of the earlier entries because, if my engineering notes are correct, the weight is actually distributed along the angled support. Yeah, that's right. I know science. Kinda. Number 3. A. A has a surprisingly good structure for a coffin. The lower section holds the body, and once buried, the shape distributes the weight of the soil in a way that keeps everything stable. It doesn't collapse inward, and it doesn't shift much over time. It's not the most spacious option, and you're resting directly on the ground rather than on a flat base, which isn't exactly luxurious, but realistically, who cares? You're literally non-existent anymore, mate. And it is secure. The small upper compartment can also hold personal items, keepsakes, anything meaningful that you want to include. Number 2. B. B is practical in a very traditional way. Everything is placed into the lower chamber, which is enclosed and protected. When you bury it, you leave the upper section above ground. And you might be thinking, okay, weird, why would you do that? Well, let me tell you, the upper part now acts as a built-in marker, also known as a headstone. So you can carve in a name, a date, whatever you want remembered. It's efficient and perfect for those wanting to spend any extra cash. The space inside isn't huge though, so everything has to be arranged carefully. But the combination of protection and identification makes this a strong option. It's basically something you'd see in a supermarket advertised as a 2-in-1 system, which the simple human brain would instantly see as a worth it kind of purchase. Number 1. O. O takes top spot because it does exactly what a coffin is supposed to do. The body is placed inside and then the structure is sealed, welded shut. And just like that, it forms a complete enclosure. The circular shape helps it distribute pressure evenly, which helps it stay intact underground for a very long time. Like, I don't know if you've done any weird pressure tests in your science class, but from what I learned, spheres are mega strong. The floor isn't perfectly flat, but if the body is positioned carefully before sealing, everything stays where it should. Nothing gets in without tools, no weirdo animals, no weirdo insects, and definitely no weirdo people. It keeps the contents isolated from the outside world, which is like the whole point of a coffin. So yeah, I've put all my money on and in O. You're stranded at sea and desperately need a boat, so which letter are you picking? If you chose X as your makeshift boat, you'd be silly, because it somehow manages to be dangerous even before you get in the water. Yeah, not very comfy to sit in, but lower it into the sea and you'll quickly realise it doesn't even float in any helpful way. The arms sit at awkward angles and the centre doesn't really trap any air. The whole thing just sort of disappears beneath the surface like a literal rock. There's also another problem. The shape looks suspiciously similar to those naval mines you see in old documentaries, you know, the ones that look like massive balls with spikes just drifting around waiting for ships to bump into them. So not only are you sinking, you also resemble an explosive hazard. So if it is your lucky day and a passing boat spots you, they're more likely to actually steer away rather than rescue you. Number 9. C. C is one of those letters that would actually work if you rotated it. But no, I know that annoys you guys so much, so in this video we're sticking to the harsh reality and have officially banned turning letters around. I can't handle the comments anymore saying that rotating letters is cheating. So in the real world, you lower this into the water upright and it immediately takes on water. The opening is on the side, which means the sea pours in like it's been invited. Within moments, the entire structure is filled up and sinks. And as you embark on your long and dark journey to the bottom of the sea, I guess we'll see you later. Yeah, sorry, that was terrible. Number 8. G. G is the first one that technically floats. That's already progress. The enclosed section traps some air and gives you a little pocket of buoyancy. You could climb in and for a moment it would feel like you might survive the voyage. The problem is balance. You see, the walls aren't really that high and the opening gives water a clear path inside, but as long as you sit perfectly still and assume the sea waves are calmer today, everything behaves. But the microsecond you lean a little too far or shift your weight to get that itch you've had for hours, a splash makes its way in. And once that's happened, the water doesn't politely stop. See, you've just created what is known as a siphon, and soon the entire thing fills up, bish bash bosh, you're underwater. But hey, at least for a brief time, we know it did work. What do they say? It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all? Yeah, I think that can apply here. Number 7. H. H is surprisingly serviceable. When you lower it into the water, the bottom legs disappear beneath the surface, but the upper section still has enough volume to keep everything afloat. Yeah, look at that, we're using scientific language now, like volume. Aren't you impressed? But anyway, you sit across the middle bar and suddenly you've got something that resembles a small raft. Yeah, it's not the comfiest because of the sharp corners inside, but just bring some cushions with you or something, I don't know. The downside, however, appears once you start moving. The shape is all square and blunt, which makes makes it slow. Water pushes against it instead of sliding past. So you will survive as long as you can, but without reaching land anytime soon. And the clock is ticking. There's also the issue of depth. If you do reach some shallow areas, these lower legs will hit the seabed long before you expect them to. So you will most likely end up being stuck like a piece of furniture someone left in a tide. Number 6. I is the kind of boat that works purely because nature occasionally does strange things. There's a famous example of a long tree that has been floating upright in a lake for over a century. No one really planned it that way, but there it is, still bobbing around like a wooden exclamation mark. So you have to treat I in the same way, and suddenly you've got a surprisingly stable floating object. The letter stands vertically in the water with just the top portion sticking out. And because the center of gravity is, well, underwater, it actually makes this one super stable. You can even do some jumping jacks on it or whatnot. The catch is that you also have to remain vertical. Even once you get tired, maybe those jumping jacks weren't such a good idea. There isn't much room to sit comfortably, so now the question is, how long can you stand up before your legs give out? Number 5. O floats quite happily once you climb on top of it. The circular shape distributes weight nicely, and the enclosed ring traps plenty of air to keep it buoyant. You legit just sit there in the middle and drift along the waves. In very technical terms, it qualifies as a real boat because it keeps you above the water. But in reality, it comes with a whole multitude of problems. One of which is that it's pretty much like being on a floating barrel in the sense that it actually won't stop moving. You're going to have to continuously jog as it rotates beneath your feet to stop you falling in. So yeah, in practical terms, it behaves more like one of those sea buoys that mark shipping lanes. You know, the ones that you always mistake for someone swimming whenever you quickly glance at the sea. Yeah, we all do it. But yeah, whatever. You can't steer this thing or even paddle it. You're just simply existing in the ocean while hoping something interesting passes by. Again, it works, but purely powered by your patience. Number 4. R finally brings some engineering and thought into the situation. When you lower it into the water, the rounded upper section traps air and lifts most of the structure above the surface. That gives you a stable platform to sit on, but the interesting part is the leg, because the other half of the letter is still underwater, so with a little creativity, you can attach a small motor or some sort of vibrating mechanism to it. I found this one in my mum's drawer prior to my sea trip. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it'll work. But anyway, that leg acts like a primitive propeller. Instead of paddling with your hands, you let the up and down vibration push the water behind you, thus propelling your R boat in any direction you desire. It's definitely not fast, but hey, at least you can attach more vibration thingies to it. Number 3. W. W is perfect for company. The 2 dips in the letter act like little seats, which means that 2 people can sit side by side without fighting for space. The structure spreads your weight across multiple points, so it stays balanced even when the water gets a bit choppy. Although keep in mind that the floor inside those dips isn't perfectly smooth, it is literally sharp corners in fact, which might make you shuffle around trying to find a comfortable position. Still, it floats without much complaint, and the real advantage appears when you connect several W's together. Line them up and you suddenly have a long floating chain. Add enough of them and you've basically invented a ferry. Number 2. T. T is the choice for anyone who values speed. At the surface, you only see the top bar, which slices through the water just like a surfboard. And beneath the surface is the vertical section that acts as a stabilizing fin. That fin keeps the boat upright while reducing sideways wobble. When waves push against you, the lower section cuts through them rather than letting the whole thing roll around. It's simple but effective. With a bit of paddling, and if you hit the right wave, you can actually travel surprisingly quickly. This one is kinda designed to stand up, but there's plenty of room for you to sit or even lie down if things get tiring, though there aren't really any sides to it, meaning that you will end up getting splashed by the cold, salty seawater. Number 1. U. And finally, U takes the top spot because it behaves exactly how you want a boat to behave. The curved sides trap a large pocket of air, giving it reliable buoyancy. This symmetry keeps it balanced even when the water moves beneath you. There's also enough space inside to sit comfortably instead of clinging to the edges. You can add supplies, stretch your legs, maybe even lie down if the sea is calm. There's plenty of room, even to make different platforms so that you can fully try to live on this thing. Say, have your storage underneath and a higher floor is where you can sit. Put it this way, if I was stranded at sea, I'd want to have you with me. So, subscribe. Nailed it. Let's say you snuck a letter of the alphabet into prison with you. Which one would help you escape best? Well, if you decided P was the move, then I have some bad news for you. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. In theory, yes, it could be used as a tool. Okay, I vibe with the optimism. But in practice, all it's really good for is eating that horrible soup they keep serving. What flavour even is that? Like boot and onion? But anyway, the idea here is simple and very short-lived. You try using the P like a metal spoon to dig your way through the cell wall. Unfortunately, walls are not made of liquid soup. They're usually reinforced concrete, which is something that I think you should have known prior to being locked up. But since you're a silly little guy, you'll be there for months scraping tiny amounts of dust off the surface while the guards walk past wondering why you're polishing the walls so enthusiastically. And even if you had unlimited time, the hole you'd make would barely qualify as a scratch. So P is that letter that gives you hope for about 10 seconds before reality shows up. Number 9. Z. Z is the kind of letter that makes you stare at it for a while whilst trying to figure out if there's some clever use you've missed. Spoiler alert, there isn't. It doesn't dig, it doesn't hook onto anything, it doesn't wedge into gaps. In fact, its very existence is just kind of mystifying in this scenario. If you had enough of them, maybe you might be able to trade them around the prison yard like currency, maybe build up some goodwill with other inmates, perhaps get to know the most powerful gang connected to smuggling people out and do it that way. But when it comes to actually escaping the building, in physical technique, Z contributes nothing. It's a spectator in the escape plan. It'll keep you company whilst you manage to find your own way out. Thanks, Z. Huge help. Not. Number 8. I. Okay, for those of you who hate when I bend logic, you're probably going to hate this one. And I'm not going to lie, like even I can see that the premise for I is so unrealistic on so many levels that it barely qualifies. So firstly, you'd have to somehow sneak a massive L-shaped beam, presumably made of dense building material, into a prison. Right away, I'm asking myself, if you manage to smuggle an object of that proportion inside without any of the staff or guards noticing, the prison probably has bigger problems to deal with than your escape attempt. But besides that, you'd then have to reach the roof with your gargantuan letter. Again, completely unseen by anyone. Then, when you're up there, push the eye over the edge and let it fall across the gap between the building and the outer wall, which obviously then you'd use to walk across, climb down on the other side, and you're free. But like I mentioned, this one is so outlandishly impossible that I just couldn't justify placing it any higher in this list, or you guys would probably start threatening me in the comments. I'd probably get put in jail myself. Number 7. A. A stands for ambitious, and funnily enough, that's exactly what this choice is. If you get high enough, the shape of this letter actually works as a very crude parachute. Wait, hang on a minute, didn't we already do a video about that? Alright, whatever, get ready to do a big leap, because we're gonna need distance here. Those prison walls are looking pretty high, but after a run up, you jump from the roof and hold onto the sides and hope that the wind cooperates. In the best case scenario, you drift gently over the wall and land somewhere outside the prison grounds and walk it off all nonchalant. In the worst case scenario though, which is probably what would happen to you, the wind changes mid-direction and you glide straight into the administrative building. Yeah, explaining why you've just parachuted through the warden's office window is not a conversation you want to have. It's quite literally like trying to get out of school and then ending up in front of the principal. Number 6. C. C looks like it might be useful at first. It's curved and sharp at the ends, and it actually feels like a tool. In reality though, it behaves more like a farming implement. Think sickle rather than crowbar, which is great if you're into agriculture and you're planning to harvest crops in a prison garden. Unfortunately for you, that's not the aim here. It's actually getting out of prison, if you remember, not collecting grain. So stop doing that. Try instead making your target that steel door over there. I think it might lead to the exit. Yeah, see how it doesn't have much effect? You're like a needle trying to puncture a coin. It's never going to happen. At this rate, you better hope that they're offering early parole for the most well-kept field. You'd win by a country mile and be home in no time. Number 5. V. V is one of the first letters here that actually does something useful. The point at the bottom concentrates great force in a small area, which means you can drive it into the ground like a makeshift pneumatic drill. Repeated strikes in rapid succession could eventually break through the concrete or stone. Unfortunately, whilst you were having so much fun tunneling, you completely disregarded the unbelievably thunderous amount of noise you're making. A tool like this announces itself loudly. The guards will know exactly where you are within seconds of you starting. If, however, whether you happen to be placed inside a prison with the world's most chronically deaf prison guards, you run into the other issue, which is direction. Yeah, okay, hi, you with the drill, can you just cut that out for a second? Okay, thanks. Did you ever stop to look around where you're actually going? I don't know if you're aware, but a couple more meters and you're about to become incinerated by falling into the molten core of the earth. And it's not as if you can get back out of where you are. So, well done, mate. You traded a cozy prison cell for a boring small pit. Number 4. L. L requires teamwork and, let's say, questionable physics. You balance it on its corner so it forms a seesaw. Now, here's the difficult part. You have to befriend one of the inmates. I know, making friends, that's terrifying, right? But you can't just make friends with any inmate. He's got to be fat, like the biggest guy you can find. Maybe offer him some of your food, that ought to work. If you can manage that successfully, then you now need to convince him to jump on the other side of your L-shaped seesaw. And the moment that heavy guy jumps, the opposite side launches you into the air. Now, in theory, this could fling you high enough to clear the wall, but theory will only take you so far, and in practice, the angle actually sends you directly into the wall itself. It's a spectacular attempt, don't get me wrong, but it ends with you sliding down the bricks and reconsidering your life choices. Number 3. You. This one also has the potential for great injury. It also involves a lot of collection, kind of like a squirrel. So first what you've got to do is gather up as many rubber bands as possible, which might involve repeated trips to the arts class or a surprisingly intense craft program in the rec room. Now, once you've collected enough, tie those bands to the tips of the U and suddenly you've got a giant slingshot. So step into the middle, pull everything back and release. You're definitely going to leave the prison yard and very quickly, probably going to break the sound barrier whilst you're at it. The landing is another matter. This method prioritizes distance over comfort. There's no telling where you end up. Could be a meadow full of lovely daisies, or it could be a crocodile pit. Side note, that last one is particularly likely if you went to jail in Florida. Number 2. H. H is the classic ladder strategy. If several inmates manage to sneak in their own H letters into the yard, the pieces can be assembled quickly into a tall climbing structure. All you've got to do is wait for outdoor activity time, and then just after you finish playing hopscotch and tag, move the pieces out from under your uniform and build the ladder whilst the guards are distracted. I hear there's an Australian prisoner doing some breakdancing, and it's something to behold. That should keep them busy for a while, and the moment the ladder is tall enough, everyone climbs. Speed matters here, because the plan only works whilst no one is paying attention to you. If it goes smoothly, you're over the wall before anyone realizes what's happening. But if you're a bit slow and the snipers start firing lethal rounds at you mid-climb up the ladder, then it's probably time to get a move on. Number 1. T. T wins because it's simple and reliable. The shape works perfectly as a pickaxe. You grip the long section, swing the crossbar into the wall, and keep going until something breaks. It doesn't need power, it doesn't rely on wind, and it doesn't require any complicated construction. It's not quick, but it's dependable. Prison escape stories have been using this approach for decades, and there's a reason for that. It's because it works. Stickmen all look the same, but imagine if you had to use letters to make them instead. Well, you certainly wouldn't want to use the letter U, which might be the worst possible body shape you could give a stickman. Your head sits right in that dip at the bottom, which seems harmless until the weather changes. The moment it rains, that curved shape starts collecting water like a bowl. You're essentially walking around with a rain gutter attached to your shoulders. Stand outside long enough and you'll slowly fill up like a bucket. So having this body shape would quite literally drown you by just standing outside. But even if the weather behaves, people will still see that hollow space and assume it's meant to hold things. You know, like loose change, snacks, empty cups, maybe a banana peel. Speaking of, I've got this paper ball and I'm done using it, so I'm going to go for the 3-pointer here. Alley-oop. Okay, just missed, but you see what I was going for. Anyway, before long, you're going to feel like less of a person and more of a public bin with legs. Number 9. P. Just a really odd choice of body. Like, the balance situation is terrible. Actually, that kind of sounds like it could be a Moist Critical video title. The stickman situation is crazy. Wait, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, all the weight. It sits near the top because of that big round section, which means that every step feels like you're carrying a watermelon on your back. And just to make matters worse, your legs come out of that really narrow base, and with your high center of gravity, they're constantly trying to keep everything upright while the whole upper half swings around. So now even just walking becomes this Herculean task that involves careful negotiation with gravity. If you lean forward too much, you're going to tip over. Lean back and you're also a goner. Turning corners feels like steering a shopping trolley with a broken wheel. So yeah, you'll spend most of your days concentrating on not falling over. Number 8. M. Moving on to a letter with a whole new set of problems. M gives you plenty of width, which, sounds alright, got a bit of girth, good on you. But it all fades when you try to move, well, anywhere. Even walking down the street turns into a slow side-to-side shuffle because your body is twice as wide as everyone else's. I'm telling you, this world wasn't made for a giant. On top of all of that, from a distance, you look like a giant letter from a certain fast food restaurant. People keep waving at you and taking photos and asking where the nearest restaurant is. I mean, you can tell them 400 times that you don't work for McDonald's, but they'll just forget 10 minutes later. So yeah, sorry to disappoint you, buddy, but you're not a person now. You're a promotional event wandering through town. Number 7. L. L has a very specific problem. The moment people see your shape, they realize you look exactly like a seat. That means every time you stop moving, someone is tempted to sit down on you. Things like waiting at a bus stop become a nightmare because strangers assume you're public furniture. Like, hey, I probably wouldn't mind, if they ask me politely, but when it's someone who hasn't showered for a week, I draw the line. But even worse than that, because of your elongated flat back, if you fall over, you're stuck lying flat there with the right angle shape pointing upward. Getting back up is not elegant. In fact, it's a bit embarrassing to watch. You look like a flipped tortoise waving its arms until someone helps it. Number 6. T. T gives you height and presence, which is great, but the shoulder situation quickly becomes an issue. You see, the top bar stretches so far to the other side that your arms are effectively too short to reach your own mouth, which makes eating now this complicated process involving leaning forwards, tilting your head, and hoping the food eventually lands somewhere useful. Drinking from a cup is an even bigger challenge. But hey, you might end up inventing new methods of feeding just to survive. Being tall is usually a benefit, but in this case, it comes with a strange dietary obstacle. Number 5. X. X turns you into a very unusual silhouette. Your legs stick out beneath the crossing lines, which makes it look like you're wearing some kind of rigid skirt made of metal beams. Which, hey, if you're into that kind of dress sense, who am I to judge over here with my $10 jeans? No, the real problem sits higher up. See, look at where your head is. It's right in the center where the lines cross, which creates a sort of trough around your face. That trough blocks your side view almost completely. You can see straight ahead just fine, but anything happening to the left or right might as well be in another dimension. So, a word of warning for this one, because of your impaired peripheral vision, crossing the street is now suddenly a massive gamble. Number 4. B. B is definitely the closest to a certain type of body design that we've all seen before. So notice it gives you 2 large rounded sections stacked on top of each other. Yeah, the result looks like less of a person and more of a snowman who took a wrong turn into the alphabet. Your limbs stick out around these 2 huge bulges and makes movement slightly clumsy. Turning sideways requires a bit of planning because those curves like to bump into things. And people might also assume you're just a bloke permanently wearing a padded winter coat. The downside of being a snowman though is that you can't enjoy the warmth of the summer sun, and with all that lovely weather right around the corner, I just can't bring myself to put this any higher in the list. Number 3. O. On the subject of realistic-looking body shapes, O is basically the stickman equivalent of being a big round guy. Your body becomes a circle with limbs poking out around the edges. Walking does work, but it feels very inefficient because your legs are attached to something that clearly prefers rolling, and people might make fun of you for being that slow and immobile. But what if you start experimenting with that idea? Not using your legs at all could be revolutionary. So you find a gentle slope, tuck your arms in, and suddenly you're traveling much faster than anyone expected. Just goes to show, never judge a book by its cover. I mean, getting back on your feet afterwards might take a bit of practice, but at least the option exists. Number 2. A. Yeah, I swear I've seen this body type before. Where was it? Oh yeah, of course. It was on the side of the road, as this is obviously a traffic cone with arms and legs. The wide base gives you great stability, while the narrow top keeps your head balanced nicely above everything else. The A shape also leaves a little window in the middle where your stomach sits, which, when you think about it, most stickman bodies don't have. They're just a line. Although in this case, everyone can see straight through it, which means that your lunch choices are immediately public information. So if you are on your third Big Mac this week, people are going to know and they will be judging. Still, from a practical standpoint, it works surprisingly well. You stand firmly, move easily, and rarely lose your balance. And added bonus, you're also visible to oncoming traffic. Always good to know. Number 1. I. I is the clear winner because it keeps everything simple and effective. Your body becomes a straight vertical line, which means your head sits comfortably above your shoulders and your legs extend naturally below. You look tall, which people tend to interpret as confident and impressive. You've got some wide, but not too wide, shoulders, and the proportions make walking easy, standing comfortable, and everyday life fairly normal. Out of all of the alphabet options, this is the one that lets you pass for an actual person instead of a walking punctuation mark. Say you want to capture someone, but you could only use letters. Which would work best? Well, I can tell you right now, it shouldn't be V. Gotta be the most pathetic excuse for a trap in existence. The idea is simple: lure someone into the middle and then let the angled sides keep them contained. But in reality, the whole thing is so unstable that it can barely contain itself. Even if you could convince someone willingly to climb inside the V, the moment any weight shifts, it tips over like it's lost confidence. Now your trap is lying on its side and your target is just stepping out. Slightly confused, but otherwise fine. You've essentially built a very inconvenient doorway. It looks threatening, but it has the structural integrity of a folding chair. Number 9. B. Oh, wow, so much wasted potential. It could practically be the Alcatraz prison of the alphabet. Because, I mean, look at it. It should be incredible. 2 separate compartments, perfect for holding 2 unfortunate victims at once. Its organizational efficiency kind of makes it feel like it was designed for this exact purpose. But obviously, upon closer inspection, you realize there's no actual way to get anyone inside. It's sealed, like completely enclosed. No doors or even a single opening, just absolutely nothing to work with. You've created the perfect trap that nobody can enter, which is a strange achievement when you think about it. But yeah, you could stare at it all day imagining how effective it would be if reality allowed it. But don't worry, I won't break the rules of the letters like I usually do. I know that angers you guys, so I'm playing fair today. Number 8. O. Yeah, O isn't really a trap, but it does something else which is pretty close if you ask me. Basically, you hang it from a chain, lift it high above ground, say stand on a tall building or something, and wait for your target to walk underneath. Then you drop it and let it swing like a wrecking ball, and oh boy, is the result immediate. Like I said, they're not trapped, they're just temporarily knocked out as a massive O concusses them out of nowhere. Yeah, this one is so low down in this list because there is a risk of actually killing the other person, and it's less of a funny prank and more of a now you have to spend the rest of your life on the run type situation, which, you know, I can't be bothered doing. I've already got enough on my plate, like making these dumb video ideas. But anyway, if your goal is to stop someone in their tracks, then this works. If your goal is to keep them there and have them alive, you're going to need a follow-up plan. Number 7. J. Alright, let's see if your guys' brains work like mine. Look at that J and tell me what it could be used for to capture someone with. Go ahead, I'll give you a second. Give up? Well, I thought it clearly looks like a fishing hook, right? Seriously, I mean, tie it to some string and a rod and place some bait on the tip. Bear in mind we're trying to catch people here, so let's put something on the end like a chicken nugget or a phone that auto doomscrolls TikTok, and wait for someone to be inevitably drawn in and get real close. Then the moment they do, yank them as hard as you can. Hook, line, and stinker. In theory, the hook catches them and lifts them off balance, and you've got something to cook for supper tonight. In practice, though, this requires a lot of strength. Like lifting a fully grown human is not something you casually do with one arm. If you can manage it though, it's effective. You've essentially gone fishing on land. Number 6. W. W is just as deadly, if not more, than O. This is the perfect spike trap. Time to get all hypothetical here. Let's say someone you don't like is walking across a rickety bridge. Let's also say beforehand you placed this W spike trap below said bridge, and also on the bridge cut some of the safety mechanisms to stop it collapsing. The situation that would then unfold is rather graphic, but you can probably guess. They basically fall onto the W and become impaled by multiple skewers. Again, if you actually want to have your target trapped but also alive, this might not be the greatest option. Number 5. S. S is exactly where things once again take their own meaning of what a trap is. It looks inviting, which is exactly why it works. It has that smooth, curved shape that suggests fun. People see it and think, hey, that's a slide. So they climb up, sit down, and push off. Little do they know that that slide leads right off the edge of a cliff. Yeah, more than one of these don't actually trap people, they just kill them. Oh well. But either way, even after they realize the slide doesn't end in a safe place, there's not really much they can do about it. Straight off the edge you go. This is one of those traps that relies entirely on first impressions. By the time the person realizes what's happening, momentum has already made the decision for them. Number 4. T. T is a classic setup, which you may have seen before. You prop it up at an angle using a stick, then attach a string to that support. Then you place whatever you need to lure someone in and make a trail of it leading all the way underneath the T. They'll follow it all the way to the end, and then the moment they step into position, pull the string, the support disappears, the T drops, and suddenly they're pinned underneath a huge, large, heavy shape. It's a proper Tom and Jerry type of trap, if you're old enough to remember that cartoon, that is. But it works because people don't expect it. As far as they know, they're just following a trail of candy that mysteriously keeps on going. Number 3. L. Now I know, you're probably thinking, wait, what? This looks useless. How could this possibly be all the way up at number 3 in the list? Well, hold your horses and let me explain. See, if you look closer, you'll actually notice that this L is actually made out of ice. Orange flavored ice. It's practically the world's biggest popsicle. Now, if you leave it out somewhere obvious, like a frozen treat waiting to be discovered, someone will come along and decide to give it a taste, and instantly regret that decision, because now their tongue sticks to the surface and they're now attached to your trap. They could try to pull away, but that's not a pleasant option. Every attempt results in agonizing pain, so unless they brought a cup of hot water, they're probably going to stay stuck to this thing for a while, probably also vowing to never eat an iced lolly ever again. Number 2. H. H combines planning with impact. If you suspend it above ground using ropes and disguise it as something harmless, maybe a piece of modern art or maybe just a part of the environment, I don't know, and then beneath it you place a pressure plate, yeah, you know, those things from Minecraft, and when someone steps onto that plate, the support releases and drops the H straight down. The two vertical sides hit the ground on either side with such force it pins them in place. It's fast, it's decisive, and it leaves very little room for escape. The only issue is what happens afterwards, because lifting something that heavy isn't going to be easy, but as a trap, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Number 1. U. U takes the top spot because it's the classic pitfall trap, just with a bit more structure. Firstly, you'll need to take a flight to your nearest jungle, but to save time, here's one I prepared earlier. Now in the dirt path, if you dig a hole and place a U inside, you can then cover the top with big leaves that have seemingly fallen from the canopy above. Then when someone walks over it, they fall straight through into the U below. The vertical sides make climbing out difficult, especially if you've made them smooth, and with a bit of extra preparation, you can grease up the walls, making the interior extra slippery. You've got a trap that keeps people exactly where you want them. It's simple, but it's been working for a very long time for a reason. Say you need to quickly find a hotel, but they're all letters. Which one are you picking? Well, the worst one is definitely O. Why? Well, maybe because you physically can't get inside. It looks abandoned and, oh wait, this is literally just an old decommissioned bunker. That's already a pretty bad start for a hotel. You show up with your bags expecting at least some kind of entrance, maybe a little reception area or something, maybe even a bored worker, but instead you're just stood outside a giant circle like you've arrived at the wrong location. You walk around it once or twice hoping you've missed the door, but nah, there just isn't one. Yeah, I don't know what I was drinking when I googled for hotels in my area and this popped up, but let's just ignore it and quickly move on. Number 9. E. If you've ever made the silly mistake of trusting fake reviews online, letter E is what you will get. As soon as you arrive, you look around, lost, because it looks nothing like on the pictures. But, well, you think to yourself and still check in as normal. Now that I look closely, the inside also kind of looks like a literal ruin. Like there's actual walls missing. This is one of those places where the photos were clearly taken from the only decent angle. You turn up expecting something cozy, and instead it feels like you've booked to stay inside a half-collapsed building. Still, because you've already made the trip, you try to stay positive and drag your suitcase in anyway, but hey, at least you didn't give them any deposit money, right? Right? Well, hope you enjoy your stay and the upstairs neighbour. Number 8. S. You take number 8 and remove 2 small sections and you basically get the letter S. So right away, this one feels like I've just included it onto the list because I've run out of ideas. Because you look at it and there's no sensible way you're getting proper rooms out of that shape. Yeah, this doesn't look like a hotel at all, and that's because you take this and place it next to a real hotel, and all of a sudden you have a super fun giant water slide that the whole family can enjoy. And honestly, that is exactly what this should be. Suddenly the shape actually makes sense. Kids love it, adults pretend they're only trying it once, and it becomes one of those weird little hotel extras everyone remembers. But again, it's not exactly the place to get comfy and sleep in, so that's why it's only number 8 on the list. Number 7. A. This is the really cute and cozy A cabin you found on Airbnb. And surprisingly, it looks like the pictures. In fact, it looks like the actual Airbnb logo itself. Everything works and you're just happy, which already puts it ahead a lot of places. It's got that proper little cabin feel where you start imagining yourself becoming a calmer, more outdoorsy person. Maybe take a cheeky selfie and try being that Instagram influencer. No, that's too far. Anyway, nighttime arrives and you have to climb up into your bed upstairs. And yeah, about that, you might have missed the small print that specified this place only comes with a kid's bed. So, unless you enjoy folding yourself like a piece of origami just to fit on a mattress, or you can somehow shrink yourself, you're sleeping on the hard wooden floor downstairs tonight. But hey, I've heard people say it's apparently good for your back. Number 6. L. If you love outdoors and nature, this is the one for you, because when you book your reservation, what you're paying for is basically a bit of wooden decking with one giant wall. But where do you sleep? Well, the idea is to bring your own tent with you, so really this is less of a hotel and more of an expensive place to camp. You arrive expecting a room and instead realise the accommodation is mostly your own responsibility. How very generous of them. You'd usually find this place near something really cool and grand, like the Grand Canyon. And yes, the cool part is intentional because it literally gets really, really, really cool at night. The place is cold, alright? That's the joke I was going for. But yeah, that's the trade-off. The location is stunning, the view is amazing, but the second the temperature drops, you realise one giant wall is not exactly luxury protection from the elements. So, as pretty as watching the naked starry night might be, make sure you bring about 3 different sleeping bags with you. Number 5. Z. This hotel is kind of for the thrill seekers out there. It starts out normal, like any other lobby on the bottom, but as soon as you step into the lift, you'll pretty soon get motion sick. Because instead of going upwards, you're actually going to be travelling diagonally, but wait till you reach the top, because once you're there, you'll realise how unstable a structure this really is. The top floor is literally only attached on one side. Combine that with our good old pals gravity and wind, and the whole thing is going to start shaking like me whenever I had to speak in front of the whole class as a kid. Wait, what? How did that end up on the script? Anyway, that's not really the vibe you want from a hotel. Nice views maybe, but you'd spend the whole night noticing every creak and every gust of wind. Number 4. I. This is top notch, but only for the top % of humans. The mega rich. The bottom serves as a big entrance lobby area. Think loads of wine, sports cars parked outside, etc. This is the top G area only. Yeah, I know, I cringed a little bit too when I said that. Anyway, whilst the stem of the L serves as a giant elevator shaft that takes you all the way to the top, the penthouse, it's filled with insanely overpriced furniture, a rooftop pool and bar, and amazing views of the city. So yeah, if your name happens to rhyme with Ronald Grump, it means you can actually afford to stay here. This place is perfect for you. Number 3. You. This is a really cool hotel because you'll actually find that it's kind of submerged underwater. The entrance at the top is wide open, and after checking in, you take the stairs all the way to the bottom suite. That alone makes this one memorable. It already feels less like checking into a hotel and more like entering some secret underwater base. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the whole thing is made out of glass, so you'll most likely spend your entire time there with your face glued against the window watching all the fish and other creatures swim right past your room. Maybe even a cheeky scuba diver too. You might want to close the curtains if you want your privacy. But anyway, you're not staying here for the minibar. You're staying here to stare at fish for hours and act like it's the greatest thing you've ever seen. Although, now that I think about it, with it all being made of glass, you're not going to get the most privacy in the bathroom. Number 2. Q. This one's a bit unexpected, right? Well, hear me out. Your stay starts by standing on this huge escalator that takes you all the way inside. And as you might have noticed from the outside, the whole place is a giant dome, which means you get some really cool architecture and loads of space inside. The whole thing is separated into plenty of small rooms. So, unlike some of the other strange letters, this one can actually work really well as a proper hotel. But the top floor is where things get exciting, because you essentially get the whole tip of the dome for yourself. The architect made sure to make this bit all of glass. You're basically sleeping in your own private observatory. Wait, what the heck? Where has my arm and leg gone? Oh yeah, of course, that's what it costs to actually stay here. I remember now. That's the bad part. Number 1. H. Okay, this has to be number 1 purely because it is literally the first letter of the word hotel. It's a no-brainer, but it's not just because of that. You also get a huge bottom floor. You have your reception, your bar, a sitting area, all down there. Then on either leg of the letter, you can have an elevator shaft which takes you to the actual residential bit, because in this area you can actually fit in quite a lot of rooms. And that's why it wins. It isn't just a funny choice, it genuinely makes the most sense as a hotel. But hang on, you might say, what about the roof? Well, in this channel's classic fashion, you grab another H and just stack it on top. Bosh, you've got yourself a roof, more rooms, and a rooftop area for a pool and other exciting hotel stuff. And of course, you can keep stacking this to make this the tallest hotel ever. Ah yeah, I could see myself getting a good night's rest here. It's an alien invasion, but we've only got letters to protect ourselves. So which one would you pick? Well, let's start out with what you shouldn't pick. Have you ever seen the animated film Monsters vs. Aliens? You know, the one where in the beginning the president meets that UFO for the first time and tries to communicate with our extraterrestrial homies by playing a sick keyboard solo. Well, this is pretty much that. Gonna try and get down with the aliens using this funky H keyboard. Now, obviously, if you did watch that film, you know exactly what happened when he tried that, but if you didn't watch it, well, firstly, why not? But secondly, basically the alien gets all mad and starts breaking a load of stuff, trashing cities and all that. So the moral of this one is that it probably wouldn't work, even if you do play the alien's crazy frog. How ungrateful. Number 9. T. Okay, this is definitely also pretty slim chances of survival. Put it this way, I wouldn't want to be in this scenario. Anyway, all T is a very primitive pickaxe, probably not even diamond, more like a stone one. And the world's leaders have just announced to the entire Earth that the master plan they have come up with is to attack the aliens with brute force using these rubbish pickaxes like some undignified cavemen. Yeah, I know the real world has guns in it, but in this one, we only have T pickaxes, alright? And it pretty much goes exactly how you'd expect. You swing your pickaxe at one of the aliens and he isn't affected because of course that was just a hologram, but the aliens take that as confirmation that you want to go to war with them, and just like that, Earth is annihilated. Well done. Number 8. A. This is for if we want to get super defensive with our approach to being invaded, which, when you think about it, is a pretty good idea since we don't know the aliens' intentions yet. Basically, what you do is cover the entire planet with the spiky A shelters. Yeah, that's right, the whole planet. Should only take you an hour or two. Anyway, once you're finished, everyone basically lives their life like mole people, under the safety of the A's. Sure, it might get a bit miserable with no sunlight or real fresh air, but at least you're surviving. Number 7. O. Now, when you think classic alien signs, what do you think about? Oh, you need a minute? Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead. I'll wait. Okay, that's enough time. Now, if you were really smart, you probably figured out that O is the perfect crop circle. Now, this one does require a bit of pre-planning and preparation to be executed properly. Firstly, as a human race, we have to be able to spot the aliens coming first. Just get the world's most powerful telescope nerds on that task. Then, when we see the Martians pulling up, we go to where they plan to land and use O as our fake crop circle. So, when the Marsmen are just about to touch down, they'll see that this planet's actually already been explored, possibly by another UFO in their colony, and immediately abandon mission and head to the spacebar for a couple of IPAs. That's an acronym, by the way, for Interstellar Pale Ales. Okay, maybe I made that last part up, but you see where I was going with it. It'd work, okay? You just gotta believe. I believe. Number 6. U. This one is pure genius. Say the alien fellas are zooming towards us at speeds not even thought possible. Well, picture this. What if we have a massive U waiting for them where they try to land? I should state that this one actually relies on the aliens poorly maintaining their spacecraft and ignoring all the lights on the dashboard. If we're super lucky, one of those lights is the replace brake fluid symbol. Now, when they make their approach way too fast, they won't be able to brake in time and will slide into the first part of the U, but have so much momentum that they continue right around it until they get flung up back out into space. Kinda think of our U device as a massive half-pipe that even Tony Hawk himself couldn't handle. Number 5. X. Okay, this one's so far-fetched that even I'm questioning my logic with this one, but just hear me out, okay? Right, so X, that symbolizes a kiss in messages, right? Or, well, at least it used to before emojis took over, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. Anyway, yeah, X, kisses. What we do is when the aliens touch down and disembark the space whip, we all hold out a bunch of X's to show we're down bad, and we want to rizz up the intergalactic huzz. Now, this is so stupid. Now, this can go one of two ways. Either they reject us like it's every relationship I've ever had, or the aliens like what they see and... yeah, I'm not going to animate what happens in that scenario. I don't think the world is ready to see that. Number 4. C. Let me ask you something. Are you unfortunate enough to know what a facehugger is? Because I am. But if you're lucky enough to not know, allow me to spoil that for you. The best way I can describe it is it's this weird crab/scorpion type creature which hugs your face and lays eggs. Yeah, let's not animate the actual process of that. But besides scarring you with that grotesque thought though, there is a reason I picked C for this one. If you do have an understandable fear of these gross facehuggers, you can wear the letter C over your face as a form of protective visor, so that should a facehugger try to do things, you can remain reassured that your entire face is off limits. Yeah, I'll take 20, please. Number 3. B. We all know what B stands for. It's a word universally understood and has brought the greatest foes into beautiful unison. I am, of course, talking about beer. It's so simple, yet it could be the one way to unite us with the aliens. Now, if the aliens are anything like Paul from the hit alien movie Paul, then we can count on them already knowing how to speak fluent English, and immediately after showing them the letter B, the alien automatically assumes you're talking about beer. So you offer to buy him one, or 10, and they really enjoy it. Just think think of all the wonderful memories you're going to make together, just for them all to be wiped by him a moment later. Good times, I think. Number 2. J. J is a kind of Fast and Furious scenario in the way that it involves a car with a powerful engine and a completely unrealistic plan that miraculously works. Let's first define what J is in this scenario. Well, on its own it's not very good, but if we attach a rope to it, all of a sudden it becomes the perfect grappling hook. Now what we do is we get Vin Diesel in a 1970 Dodge Charger with the grappling hook and a firing mechanism attached to the back. Then, when the Martians touch down on Earth, hold your fire, don't do anything just yet. Wait until they disembark to look around first. Then, when they're just about to get back onto the ship to get out their guns or space lasers or whatever, Vin Diesel, hidden behind a berry bush, launches the grappling hook and yanks the UFO behind him at top speed. He drives it into the nearest volcano, handbrake turns, and releases the grappling hook, and the UFO is incinerated in the lava. Like I said, Fast and Furious plots, they tend to get a bit stupid. But then again, so are most of these videos. But anyway, now not only do the aliens not have an escape plan, we also can capture them and ask them all kinds of profound questions like, do they have chicken nuggets in the Andromeda Galaxy? This is important stuff. I need to know. Number 1. M. M is a very tactical and also kind of sad reality when you deep it. But basically what happens is before the aliens land, we stick a load of these M's up on high sticks to replicate a classic fast food chain. Now if you're wondering, okay, what is that going to do exactly? Well, we're not just putting up a few M's, we're putting up millions. Now, because the aliens did some basic research on Earth before they planned to destroy us all, they learned that that M means McDonald's, something that if consumed, say, more than 2 times a week, isn't good for you. They then come to Earth and see the amount of McDonald's there are, or at least think there are, and realize that as humans we're already doing a good enough job of destroying ourselves on our own, and they fly away. Like I said, this last one, it's just a scary reality check.